Welcome to Front Office Pros. I'm Steve and this is Joe. Today we're going to be talking about 3 moves that you should make before your trade deadline. So Joe, let's talk about the first one. We're recommending that you should target sophomore slump players.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good strategy. I think it's a good time to possibly buy low on some guys that had some buzz about them and high expectations based off of what they did their rookie years, and they some guys that might not have lived up to that potential, and I think it's a good time to possibly buy low on them.
Yeah, this would be for your more rebuild. This is more your rebuilding team. These aren't players that are going to help you, win a championship. But if you're looking to retool and you've got some, stud players that aren't going to help you in the future, targeting guys like, Kyle Pitts, who we just heard, most likely out for the year. You've got Najee Harris, who's been pretty big disappointment this year. Could get back to his old form next year. Guys like quarterback Trevor Lawrence. These are players that sometimes they have a great rookie year or they show a lot of signs of promise in their rookie year, and then they get a setback in their sophomore year. And then that third year, they really take that next leap. And so those might be some good players for you to target because for the most part, all 3 of them have been quite a disappointment. And so their values are going to be much lower than what they were when they were first drafted.
Yeah, definitely. You want to buy them while they're low before, like you said, they ascend in that third year, and then all of a sudden their value goes way higher. And a player like Najee is I think he's a great buy low candidate because I think, he's not slumping because of talent. I mean, obviously he had that Liz Frank kind of injury with his foot. I think that's what's really held him back is you kind of see him kind of as he's gotten healthier later in these weeks, he's starting to return to his form a little bit. Very impressive yesterday against the Bengals.
Yeah, so our second strategy that we'd recommend is don't be afraid to acquire 2024 first round picks and not just focus on 2023 first round picks.
Yeah, definitely. I know everyone wants to, target the next draft class and build their draft capital for this upcoming draft, and that's what all the buzz is going to be focused to in the offseason. But, the draft classes can be hit or miss come, year in, year out. Who knows? I mean, this draft class is looking, pretty good. There's definitely some high level players in the offense, but in 2024, though, looks like there's going to be some decent options as well. So I wouldn't be afraid to go for that next draft class and build that out a little bit too.
Yeah, I mean, you got, Marvin Harrison, he looks, chip off the old block like his father. And I mean, he looks like an absolute stud. I mean, you've got Travion Henderson also. He's looking really good. You just got some really interesting players in that 2024 class, Worthy out of Texas. So there's definitely some different players, the tight end out of Georgia, Bowers. I mean, there's some players that you would be really interested in. And sometimes it's hard for them to give up those 2023 first. So if they're not willing to do that, okay, maybe give me a second in 2023 and give me your first in 2024. It's better for you just to stockpile some of those picks if you're looking to rebuild.
Yeah, I think the most important thing too is, at the trade deadline, this is really the time to get deals done, and I wouldn't want to let a deal get held up because I wasn't willing to take on a future draft pick. I think the most important thing is get the deals done, maximize these players' values right now at the deadline here, and don't regret not doing one just because you wanted this year's draft class versus next year. At the end of the day, it's if it's a first next year or 2024, it's still first round pick, and you're still going to probably be in the running for a really talented player.
And at the end of the day, I mean, draft classes are different. I mean, you can definitely see a difference year over year. And sometimes there's draft classes that have a lot more quality players in them. But it's so hard to predict that sometimes. And there's players that just come out of nowhere and have just a spectacular year. So it's hard to predict that. So getting a first in general, like we're saying here, I think it's important. And don't just fixate on that 2023. And how about our third strategy, Joe? This is a league winner in our minds. And so for your contending teams, I think you do what you need to get Travis Kelce.
Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, I would be doing whatever it takes, that's for sure, because this is the one guy at the tight end position that you want to have, but he's going to be the one guy that could really ascend your team to win this year if you're looking to do that. And he's got a pretty favorable playoff schedule coming up as well, which certainly helps. But even without that, I mean, you see he's had multiple weeks with 3 touchdown games. It's just insane. And he's even an older player, but it just hasn't seemed to matter. He's still running away from players. It's pretty amazing to watch.
Yeah, he really is incredible, and he is that differentiator, especially at the tight end position. Talk about a wasteland at tight end. So having a guy like him, the difference between what you're going to get from Kelsey and what the other team's going to get from their tight end is going to be so vastly different. You already have a huge leg up on your competition if you have Kelsey. So, I mean, for me last year, I was actually a team I was kind of in the middle trying to get in the playoff hunt, and I decided to just go all in, and I traded a ton. I traded 2 firsts, a second, Zach Ertz. We do IDP. I gave Tre'Davious White. I ended up getting Kelsey. I still didn't make the playoffs, which was rough. But now I'm the number 1 seed right now, and I'm glad I did it, even though I gave up a lot. Like we've talked about, Joe, you got to risk it to get the biscuit. And if, what good is it for me to keep making the playoffs and I get bounced out and I can't win a championship?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And there's a lot of owners out there, especially in our league, that just want to be competitive and make the playoffs every year. I could care less about that. I just want to win at least, once here. And then if it means I go into rebuild for the next 3 years, so be it. I got the bragging rights of being that league championship this past year or whatever year, and I'm willing to risk it. And forget just trying to make the playoffs. That's not a goal. It's I want to win.
Yeah, and I think one disclaimer that we'd put out there, especially talking about Travis Kelsey, but just in general, is we'd really recommend you being active. I think a lot of times trades don't get done because that point of contact isn't made. Whether you have league chat that you use in your league or you have, that owner's phone number, you could text them. Oftentimes, you get in your own head, you think like, well, I would want Travis Kelsey, but what on earth would I be able to give them? And they probably don't want to trade him, so I'm not even going to reach out. You have things like the trade block, or, for our league, we do like a league buzz where everyone is informed about what's going on in our text chain, but in our text group. But, sometimes you have to be the one to reach out, and it's okay. A lot of times it's not the first offer you give that's going to make the offer happen. You just say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Let me know your thoughts and feel free to give me a counter. Start having that conversation. But if you don't have the conversation, you can't get a deal done.
Yeah, and really until we started, this league, and I was somebody who didn't trade and a pretty bad trader. I would just try to. Somebody would be like, oh, you willing to trade this guy? Or there'd be a guy I want, and it'd be like, hey, you willing to trade him? And, they would be like, well, what for? And I was like, what do you think? And then, you wouldn't hear back from them. And a lot of deals stalled off for me by doing that strategy. But then really with this league, I've made it more of a point to send at least some sort of offer and then say willing to be a counter offer. And I've been way more successful in trades, just putting different texts to different owners, even involving some of the same players, just putting deals out there and, getting the conversation going, and, found that, some people are willing to counter. Some people just say, I don't want to trade them. But, I've been far more successful with actually reaching out with some sort of offer for sure.
And honestly, regardless, yeah, exactly, Joe. And regardless if you're a contender or pretender, you need to take advantage of the deadline. I mean, especially in a dynasty league, the way that you're going to win your leagues, yes, you have to draft well. But your waiver wire, you can't really rely on that because of a deeper roster. You need to rely on trades in order to win. And if you're not trading, it's going to be very hard to improve your roster. Yeah, you're going to win some trades, you're going to lose some trades. But that's a part of the fun of it, right? So just go out there, be active, have those conversations. You should be able, there's going to be a player that either you're not high on, you're really low on, something. You can have a conversation and get a trade done before the deadline.
Yeah, definitely. And for a lot of the rebuilding teams, this is sometimes the time to really maximize a player's value. If you weren't contending for the playoffs last year, I don't know that you're willing to give up that much for Kelsey, if it was just at the start of the year or something. But the desperation of wanting to contend, want to win can sometimes, make people give up a little more than they would at other parts of the season, or even being able to during the off season.
And that's where a bidding war even, can begin to start as well, and just start having those conversations. This person's reaching out to me. I wasn't thinking about trading Kelsey. Let me ask this person, what would they give me? And then those conversations start happening. And I think almost every deadline we've had now these past 2 years in our Dynasty League, we've had at least, one or two blockbusters happen every year.
Yeah, definitely. The trade deadline is usually really active in our league. And like you said, there's generally some bidding wars and pitting owners against each other and trying to really maximize the value. It's a fun time in our league.
So that's a couple strategies that we've suggested that you make for this upcoming trade deadline. We hope you've enjoyed this content. And if you would, please like this video, go ahead and subscribe to our channel, and go ahead, hit that notification bell. We create several videos on a weekly basis. So if you have any questions for us or comments, go ahead and feel free to put some comments below. Happy to provide you some insight as to what we would do during this trade deadline. So thanks so much for watching, and until next time.